Hey, what's up, guys? Hey, so as you know, and as I was talking about this morning, there's a problem with playing players who dislike big matches. So if you've been following the channel for since it started for not quite a year yet, you'll know that I really have a problem with players who are inconsistent. I like to have players on my football manager team who are going to be predictable, who will give me something that I'm expecting to get every single time they go out. Players who are inconsistent waver from game to game, and so you'll see a match where they play really, really well and where they play up to the ability that you know that they have, and then they might give you another match where they're not quite up to that same ability, and it tends to be really unpredictable. Apologies for the light right here in my eyes. We'll go ahead and switch over here to this view so that you're not worried too much about the sun coming right over at me. Anyway, that's a problem, and that's a real frustrating thing when you're trying to manage a side on Football Manager. Now, what is even more frustrating, though, is when a player does not show up as inconsistent, but then starts to play inconsistently. This is usually due to something called dislike of big matches. Now, there's something you have to understand about this that took me a little while to get. If a player does not like big matches, you won't find out until he turns 22. But there is a sort of automatic thing written in the game. There is an attribute for big matches, whether he likes it or not. You don't have any way of knowing what this attribute is unless you go through and cheat. And I mean, we don't want to cheat. That kind of takes all the fun out of it. So I'll show you a couple examples of this. We'll go on over here to our squad. And as you can see here, we have Feng Xiaoqi here. Feng Xiaoqi was a player who I trained to be the wingback there on the left side. And he did a pretty good job of training up to it. He is now 27 years old. And for some reason with him, I never saw his dislike of big matches. It is possible that this has actually only come up over time. The reason why I say that is because you can see the color here. It's kind of light orange, almost like a yellow, which tells me that he probably was borderline, and then for some reason the big match dislike kind of popped up as time went on, right? I know that he didn't have this before because I've checked every single player that I've signed to make sure that they don't have this, and I do look periodically at my players. This, though, is a problem. It might not be a major problem for him, but it is a form of inconsistency. And so as a result, when we see him playing in matches that are perhaps a little bit big, like that famous 3-3 draw we had against Taiwan Power, he gave us that 6.5 rating instead of giving us a better rating like he did in other matches. That's why I wasn't playing him for a while. The reason why we still play him is because his current ability is still listed as Star Premier League, Chinese Taiwan Premier League. And so, there is this theory out there that even though there is that inconsistency, even as an inconsistent player, he's probably going to be better than somebody who is consistent but doesn't quite have that level of ability yet. Having said that, the dislike of big matches makes me want to look around to see if we can't find somebody else who could play in that position and play in that role who we can count upon to be more consistent. It's funny to talk about this in terms of consistency because you can see that he shows up as a consistent performer and that he's a star player and all this stuff. He's a current international and everything else. But that dislike of big matches really, really is a problem because when we get to the big game, sometimes he just doesn't show up. And when he doesn't show up, then you have to ask yourself, can I trust this guy or not? Now, the reason why this has come up, though, is not because of him. Rather, it's been because of the guy who was supposed to be the big star player, this guy, Nene Gnaziri from Côte d'Ivoire. Nene comes in as almost certainly the best striker in the country. In fact, we can look that up here. If we go over to competitions and look over here at the season preview, you will see that Nene is right here. He is listed as basically one of the best strikers in the country. He's not one of the key players, though. They think that Ndaye and Li Chaba are better, and I would have to agree. Nene has 10 goals and 9 appearances, which I believe is probably leading the league. Let's see if we can figure this out here. Yeah, player overview. And no, he is second in goals scored behind Huang Runwen. He only has 10 to the 11 that Huang Runwen has. So there you have it. And you would think, okay, well, what's the problem? why are we thinking maybe of no longer starting him or of doing something to get past him? Well, we can't see a problem here, as you can tell, right? He shows up. There's no consistency as listed here, so it's possible his consistency is kind of mid-level, but that shouldn't really matter that much, right? Because his ability is so high. But when we go over here, we look at his form in the last couple of matches. He has had very, very poor form. So we're going to get rid of the friendlies. He has been 6.3, 6.2, and 6.2. This is after scoring 1-1, then 2 hat tricks in a row, and then getting those 2 goals. There was a sort of quiet match against Athletic Club Taipei where he only had the assist. Right. In that match earlier against Taiwan Power Company, you'll notice that he scored only 1 goal, had a relatively low rating, and then a low rating here against Athletic Club Taipei. When he's getting the hat tricks, he's playing against competition that's really, really like easy, lower level, and that are teams that are not really that high in terms of like reputation. And so this might be sort of the way that the game is interpreting like what a big match is, right? Taiwan Power is in second position, right? And they're probably legitimately the second best team in the league right after us. Taichung won the league, not this last season, but the season before that, my first season in Taiwan. And then Hangyuan, of course, is a professional team that has a much higher reputation than we do. So I can see how those matches are all sort of interpreted as big matches. I mean, even Athletic Club Taipei, they have sort of I would say kind of a rivalry that's been budding with us, right? And that also would count as a big match. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 big matches. There are only 8 teams in the league, so we only play, 7 matches each round, right? 21 in the season. And so you're talking about over half of the matches are matches in which we theoretically could expect Nene to struggle. Right. I am convinced. Remember, he is, 20 years old. So it's going to be 2 years before we know whether he likes or dislikes big matches because it remains totally hidden until I think it's until he hits age 22. It may take us a while to find out that he has dislike of big matches, and that's going to be a real tricky thing if we find that out. What I'm starting to think is that we may really, really want to consider like going in a different direction instead of holding on to him because it's obvious from what he's doing that there's a problem and that there's an issue with consistency and an issue with big matches. So that's kind of what's going through my head now when I think about my save, which just like the rest of you, I spend all of my time doing, right? The question is whether there's another one of these guys, I need to look at the strikers, another one of these guys who we should look into starting more often. And I think that Hu Shichan is probably the player that we should focus on, especially since others want to go over and get him. Looks like Tainan City is very, very interested in trying to sign him off of us. It might be best for us to play Hu Shichan more frequently and to sort of get rid of Nene and see where we can go from there. That's the big problem that we have, and that's the thing that we really, really need to consider and to start thinking about, right? Because I don't know about Hu Shichan. I don't know if he has a problem with big matches or not. Doesn't look like he has a problem with consistency, at least not one that's sort of shown up. But it's hard to tell, and sometimes you wonder, well, do you want the problem that you already know about, or do you want to like try to get, the native son, the native player, the young kid, this guy's only 18, do you want to really give him a chance, or exactly what it is that you want to do? We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens as we go along and as we play, but my feeling is that we're probably going to end up not going forward much further with Nene. Now, what do you do about dislike of big matches? Well, it's really funny. When you go around the internet and see what people say about this and what their opinions are and stuff, everybody will tell you that if they don't like big matches, you need to start them in more big matches, which is ridiculous, of course. So, okay, this guy doesn't like big matches. Well, to help him out, you need to lose a whole bunch of games that are really important. I mean, come on, that doesn't make any sense, right? That's probably not the right way to do it. You can also go and you can talk with the guy, right? So we can warn him and discuss his recent form, which has been upsetting. And so we can say, let's see here. Yeah, I need you to play better. There we go. His morale is still okay. Maybe that will give him a little spark. Maybe it won't. Look, big matches are very similar to inconsistency, though. So the consistency rating, if a player is really, really inconsistent, you can do things, but it takes forever for it to change. I mean, we're talking years for a guy who's inconsistent to become slightly more consistent, right? And it goes up. People have tested this. It'll go up like 1 or 2 on the 1 to 20 scale. Over like the course of like 3 years, it'll go up like 2 points, right? So this is the reason why, at least for me, if I see inconsistency or if I see dislike of big matches, I just want to get rid of the player as soon as I can, no matter how good he is, because I know that I can't trust on him when it's really important and when it counts, right? Nene is good enough that he should be scoring multiple goals in every match. He's better than every player in every team in the league, at least as far as I'm concerned. And if he's not doing that on a consistent basis, I think, well, what are we going to do if we have cup matches, right? And we have this guy up front who's doing absolutely nothing and who's kind of a drag on the team, right? Plus, he also takes up that foreigner spot, which means that we can't get Cotter Bamba back into the team. So anyway, you can see sort of where the logic is. We have a ways to go before the transfer window opens again, so I can't really do much with the squad. Like, I can't go into registration and really change things around at all. It's going to be a couple of months in game before that happens. It'll be in August, I think late August. But when that comes around, we very well might look into moving Nene on and bringing Cotter Bamba back up, and then figuring out what we're going to do with Maile. I think that we may end up just letting his contract expire, and the end expires at the end of the year, because I don't see any way he can get in this team, and I'd rather play a native player than play Maile with his fickle personality. So anyway, there you go. Let me know what you think about this down below, but it really is a challenge. I do think, though, that in the end, the best thing to do if they're inconsistent or if they just don't like playing in big matches is to get rid of them, because if you're doing it right, you're going to play in a lot of big matches. Talk to you later. Bye.